I want to go down the ballot. I'll start with you, and Kent, you can say as much or as little as you choose to. Being a Republican, we'll start with the Republican primary. I want to go to the local races first. I mentioned there are no contested races on county council. We do have a 2-person race for probate judge. We've got a 4-person race for auditor. Dr. Thigpen, I'll start with you. How do you handicap the Jesse Cartrett, Emily Jordan race 1 weekend away from Election Day?
Well, I think there's no question that Jesse is in the lead. How much in the lead? I mean, he got a fast start, got some key endorsements, from the man sitting to my left here, a county councilman, who can turn out votes for him, and got some other good endorsements, and he's worked hard, and he's made some headway off the fact that he's got Republican on his signs. He's the only person in the Republican primaries for any office that's got Republican on his signs, emblematic of the fact that he's been long involved in local Republican county affairs. The other thing he's made some headway off is he's a lifelong resident of Florence County. Now, his opponent, Mrs. Jordan, is not originally from Florence County, and, she's not been involved in Republican Party politics to any extent here locally. However, even though I feel like Jesse's in the lead going in, I don't count Mrs. Jordan out. I opened a telephone directory and looked at the number of people who had phones in the name of Carteret. 1. I looked at the telephone directory and looked at the names of those names with the surname Jordan, and there were pages full of them, particularly up here at the top of the county. I think she's worked the Jordan name hard, and it's just been said. Jordan is an old and trusted name in Florence County. And so, I don't totally count her out at all. But going in, I think Jesse's got the lead.
Kent?
I have known Jesse Cartrett for a number of years. Jesse has worked very diligently for a lot of Republican candidates.
You and me included.
Absolutely. And I told him years ago, I said, Jesse, if you ever run for office, I'm going to be on your team. If you run for whatever it is, president, whatever it is, because he has paid his dues, earned his stripes. He's a fine young man. Now, I go to church with Miss Jordan and her family. Great family. But I committed to Jesse years ago, and I'm sticking with that. I think he's an upstanding young man. I think he'll do a great job. He's essentially been training for this job for some 3.5 years now, and most of his law practice is centered on probate law.
Listen, he discussed with me about running for probate judge when the opportunity came up, and the judgeship was open, and there was somebody in it who was going to retire for years. I mean, going back to when he first got out of law school, I ran into him and we got to talking about it. So, this is one of the ways that he got a fast start coming out of the gate.
It's interesting to me how complicated politics is. You look in the phone book and see how many people have the surname of one and the surname of the other. I mean, politics in essence there's a lot of beauty and simplicity. And I don't know Emily Jordan. Again, I don't know her at all. I share the sentiment you do with Jesse. We're not allowed as a host of a radio show to endorse anybody, but I'm kind of a loyalist in life, and people that have been good to me, I try to return the favor. And I, like you, have always benefited from Jesse being involved in the Republican Party, and, I hope he does well. I'll just say that. Let's go to the auditor's race. Deborah Dennis, Betty Dowling, Junior Lawhon, and Benji Walsh. I don't know much about any of these people. I know 3 of these people. I don't know a 4th, but I know very little about their qualities or qualifications as a county auditor.
Well, I think the lead horse in that, and it's awful hard when you've got 4 good candidates out there all working up and down the county. But I think that this Deborah Dennis who's worked in the auditor's office for 20 years and got a good bit of experience, and she's got the backing of the outgoing auditor, Wayne Joy, who, let's face it, is one of the most popular political figures in the county. And he's done a lot of work. She's got courthouse support. Wayne can get her a lot of votes down county. You know, he's a fellow that's been around a long time, and a good bit of his strength came from the bottom part every time he'd run. And I was just, talking to Kent, look at some of those boxes down county, like Johnsonville. Wayne is originally from Johnsonville. They got a fire station down there, volunteer firemen. They all vote in a block, and they move that vote around, 150, 175 votes.
And that's a lot.
And it's a lot of votes. And my guess is that Mrs. Dennis will wind up getting most of those because Wayne's working hard down there for her. Probably the person who would challenge her would be this Benji Walsh. Now, he's another one that's got courthouse support. His sister, Laurie Walsh Carpenter, is the county treasurer. And I call kind of Mr. Walsh as sort of keep it all in the family candidate. But he's got probably next to Jesse Carteret the best signs up and the most signs up. And he's got courthouse support just like the Dennis gal does. So I think they'll be the two that'll be in the lead and be in a runoff. This one's for all the marbles. There's the Democrats haven't put anybody up in the fall. The other two candidates, Dowling will get some votes. She's been long involved with local Republican politics, and I think Mr. Lawhon. It's hard for me to know exactly how he pronounces his name. One of the things he's got for him is he runs as junior. And I think that's a right noticeable thing. And he's the only one who's trying to run on some issues that, for older people, a homestead exemption on your car taxes. The county wouldn't like that much. They'd lose some money, but he's the only one that's injected some issues into the race. But it looks to me like in the end it'll be Dennis and Walsh in a runoff.
Kent?
I won't argue that at all. The thing that I think is great is the excitement of that office and the number of people who are vying for that position. Betty Dowling, I've been knowing for years. She was a classmate of one of my brothers in high school. She's been very diligent and supportive of the Republican Party. Mr. Walsh, I casually knew him. He grew up behind me, right off Clawson Road. Mrs. Dennis, honestly, I've never met. I think she's probably very well qualified as well. And Mr. Lawhon is a private businessman. I think the excitement and the interest of that many people running for that office is exciting to me, particularly when it's Republicans running. Dr. Thigpen and I remember early 70s, mid-70s, there were no Republicans in any office anyway.
1971, when I moved here, there wasn't one elected Republican in the courthouse, state legislature from Florence County. It was solidly Democratic. Now, whoever comes out of this runoff in the auditor's race will be a Republican auditor. And, depending upon what happens in the general election, with the probate judges race, where, evidently the Democrats have got a pretty good candidate they've put up in the fall. But if the Republican nominee wins that, the whole thing will be Republican.
It will.
Well, and
except for some of the councilmen.
Well,
the minority of the councilmen.
Well, A.C. Allen, I think, was the first Republican elected to Florence County Council as Republican.
That's right.
When Stephen DeBerry was elected 4 years ago, we, for the first time in the history of Florence County, have a majority of Republicans on council. Is anything decided by party affiliation on county council? Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, absolutely. But, the way the system is, you either file as a Republican or a Democratic candidate. I choose to file as a Republican because I've been a card carrying Republican since I got old enough to vote, So I think that's great that many people see the promise of that in the Republican Party now.
Okay, to that point, last question of this segment. There's a ballot question, and it's on the Republican ballot. Do you believe that voters should have the option to choose to affiliate with a political party when they register to vote or change their voter registration in South Carolina?
Well, you know how I feel about that. I'm going to vote against that one. I don't think we need closed primaries here in South Carolina.
And I'm with you. I'm absolutely.
It would be bad for the system. You'd wind up with, in a statewide race, for instance, with a Democratic nominee who was so far on the left they'd fall off the world, and the other side, a Republican candidate who would fall off on the other side because he'd be so far on the right. And it would mean that independent voters who didn't affiliate with a party couldn't vote until the general election.
And that's an important part of the political dynamic in America. We need independents.
We do.
And I mean, we need people that'll vote for a Democrat every now and then and vote for a Republican. I know a lot of our listeners get offended by that. But I think the political orbit lacks woefully pragmatism and compromise and moderation. And if you go down this road, you're going to get some stern, solid, conservative Republicans, but you're excluding a number of independent voters that I think should be welcomed into the Republican
Party. But let me tell you, I think a lot of people won't think it through, and I bet you this ballot question carries.
I'm like both of you about that. I'm going to vote against it myself because I agree with the two-party system. Well, it can be multiple parties, too, but I believe in that, and I believe that's the way it works best for candidates to affiliate with the party. On the county level, again, I don't think it makes any difference. City council, I think it's nonpartisan now, and I think we're one of the few counties that actually have partisan politics on the local level.
It is, and I'll say this: the candidate should have to declare a party. The voter shouldn't. I mean, to me, the voter just shouldn't have to declare a loyalty or an allegiance to a party. You know where your heart is. You know where your priorities are. I mean, I ran as a Republican in a district that never elected a Republican because I just couldn't run as a Democrat. I couldn't do that. I mean, I couldn't square that up in my body, soul, and mind, so I ran as a Republican. I just think voters should have some autonomy of their vote. Just don't tell me I've got to vote in a Republican primary. We got to take a break. We'll be back after the break. We'll talk about the governor's race, Secretary of State, Attorney General. Good morning, PD Live 95. Thanks to our good friends at Forest Lake Greenhouse.